There's a myth we tell ourselves about power. If you gain enough of it, political power, physical strength, authority, dominance, you become free. But history, philosophy, and tragedy all point in the opposite direction. The most powerful men are often the least free, not because they lack control over others, but because they have lost control over themselves. Darth Vader is one of the clearest images of this paradox. He commands fleets, he destroys worlds, he bends fear itself into a weapon, and yet he is not free. He is enslaved. And the question is not just fictional, it's philosophical. Why do powerful men become slaves?
Interesting.
Hello and welcome to HD Philosophy, the channel where we take some time at the classics to bring our lives into high definition. And this is episode 3 of Darth Vader in Street Fighter VI, the Philosophy series. In today's video, we will examine how power enslaves when it isn't properly oriented. Asking an overall question, why do powerful men become slaves? To begin to answer this question, we're actually going to turn to Plato in Plato's Republic, in an argument made by Glaucon, who believes and challenges Socrates that power is freedom. He uses this example of the ring of Gyges in order to clarify his argument. So the ring of Gyges, shortly, is there's a shepherd in the service of Lydia, and out one day when he's like tending to his flock, there's an earthquake and a chasm opens in front of him, and in the chasm there's this statue with this human being that has like a ring on his finger, and he grabs the ring, and then when he notices when he turns it upside down that he becomes invisible. So basically, Glaucon is painting this picture of a person who will legitimately get away with whatever he wants because he turns invisible. And so what does he do? He ends up seducing the queen, killing the king, and taking over the kingdom. Now for Glaucon, he's trying to demonstrate that all individuals just lack the power to do whatever they want. And if they had the power to do so, it is in their nature to be that free individual, broken from all forms of shackles, and impose their power as much as possible because they don't have to suffer the consequences. Really, what Glaucon is arguing here is that not only would a just person and an unjust person do the same thing, but he's actually arguing that freedom is gained by how much power you wield. But Plato counters this by giving an example of a person who gets whatever they want all the time. So that absolute freedom and the power to gain all the possessions they want in the world. Then he asks, would this individual be free? Anybody who has had to deal with a child that's never been told no in their life knows exactly what the answer is to this. Absolutely not. They are a gadfly. They fly wherever their instincts take them, wherever their desires take them. They are hardly ruled by internal forces, but rather react to whatever the world presents in front of them that they want. So what Plato is demonstrating here is that the soul is composed of 3 parts. You have the rational part, the appetitive part, and the spirited part. But here's the issue. You are only truly free acting as an agent, not encumbered by whatever is thrown in front of your face, only when the rational part keeps the other 2 in check and dictates where the individual goes. That is true freedom. So when desire rules, you won't have an ordered soul. Only when rationality rules do you become free. So getting whatever you want all the time, that kind of power without a structured internal soul or harmony of the soul, actually makes you disordered. This is what Plato calls the tyrannical soul instead of the just soul. Now think about Vader. Anakin Skywalker believes he's pursuing freedom. Freedom from the loss of Padme. Freedom from the fear of losing everybody he cares for. And free of limitations when he often yells about him not being the Jedi that he should be. But what he actually gains is something very different. This power without restraint, the kind of freedom that Glaucon is talking about. And what happens? He doesn't become free. He becomes bound to that fear of losing Padme, that fear of betrayal and eventual obedience to Emperor Palpatine, who is more powerful than him. So Plato would say something crucial here. If the rational part of the soul is not in command, then the self is not unified. What is not ordered from reason cannot be free, because you'll just be ruled internally by competing forces. What argument can one instinct make to another instinct? To borrow from C.S. Lewis's Abolition of Man. An instinct would have to use something outside of itself in order to justify its elevation. So Vader's power doesn't free him. This ultimate power doesn't free him. It actually exposes his fragmentation. Now, Augustine actually goes deeper than Plato in this sense, because he doesn't say that the problem is simply like ignorance. Because let's be honest here, Anakin does have a legitimate reason to fear. He has a premonition of Padme, just like he had a premonition about his mom. The Jedi Council, they aren't helping him. They're telling him just relax and deal with it. So Augustine's insight is really going to help us understand that it's not just mere ignorance, it was the way he was directing his love. If you look at his work in the Confessions and on Free Choice of the Will, he argues, we are always free, but our will is always directed by what we love the most. Aristotle actually mimics the same thing in the Nicomachean Ethics, that we all seek out the good at the end of the day. But I'll go into Aristotle after this. Let's stick with Augustine here for a little while. So if we are always free, but our will is always directed at what we love the most, then if what we love the most is disordered, then our freedom actually collapses inwards. We become an idol unto ourselves. We become enslaved, not from external factors, but internally, within that disordered soul, as Plato talked about, because our aim is wrong from the get-go. He actually calls this the bondage of the will. Now think about Vader. Anakin doesn't fall because he stops loving. He loves very deeply. It's just that he loves incorrectly. He loves Padme, but not in truth. He loves her as a possession. You see this when he has this internal battle. It's much more deeper in the book, Revenge of the Sith, when he finally comes back to Coruscant after defeating Count Dooku. And in the book, there's this explanation of this internal rage that starts burning in Anakin when Padme won't answer him. See, in this sense, he loves certainty, but not trust. He loves life, but refuses mortality. Isn't that fascinating? Because he's aimed in the wrong direction, his love becomes anxiety. His anxiety becomes control, and then his control becomes violence. So in Augustine's case, he puts it very simply. You are enslaved by what you love in the wrong order. He put power first. He put control first. He didn't want to accept reality. And so all the power and the aim started focusing inward. The love became disordered and therefore enslaving. So after this match, I really considered just dropping out because this Sagat had beaten me so convincingly and I needed more information on the matchup. But then I decided, you know what? I'm not going to run from this. This might be a teachable moment. And more importantly, if I run from everyone who gives me a hard time, then I do not deserve the rank I'm aiming for. Now to return to the meditation. So what could Anakin have done to prevent becoming Vader? For this, we return to Aristotle. In the Nicomachean Ethics, as I stated before, Aristotle says we all aim at some form of good. But then he goes to the Nicomachean Ethics to demonstrate that freedom is not just the absence of restraint. Freedom is the ability to act according to rational virtue. So it's that very Platonic, the rational individual needs to be in control. And more importantly, virtue for Aristotle It's not like this feeling. It's actually a habit. You train your dispositions to choose the middle between excess and deficiency. These are the two vices right here. And it is fascinating how both sides enslave you. Let me give you an example. Courage is one of the more foundational virtues because courage is needed in a lot of the other virtues. It's like the Confucian kind of uprightness. You need to stand up for what is right, you know? So anyway, watch how the excess and deficiency of courage enslaves your soul. If I am scared all the time, if I am a coward, I am subjugated to that fear, so I can't even exit my home. I'm too scared. You become a prison of that fear. So that's the easy one that people often see. But what about the other side? What about recklessness? What if I have no fear whatsoever? That I'll just run out into the fray and not give it a moment's notice. Well, I'm not free in that sense either. Because I'm not thinking, I'm just reacting, I'm just going. So I am bound by the situation. If a situation arises where I should be afraid and I'm like, nope, I'm not scared of anything, and I run straight forward, that's hardly free either. Now think about wisdom, because this one's fascinating as well. When you're ignorant of something, you have to rely on someone else. If you don't understand the inner workings of your vehicle, you are a slave to the mechanic who you have to pay to get it fixed. Now consider the excess of wisdom. In The Big Bang Theory, there's this great episode where this physicist that Sheldon is corresponding with has this cabin out in the woods. And when Sheldon goes there, he sees the excess of the intellectual life. A person who was just dedicated every single minute to figuring things out. The academic world, the world of cogitation, to the point where he has no friends. He corresponds with his wife who lives in a different place, and he doesn't even tell her her true location because he doesn't trust the correspondence. But hyperbole aside, a person who is so dedicated to the life of wisdom would shut themselves out from every other form of experience. They wouldn't have friends. They wouldn't have meaning. That's what the excess of wisdom, or a life devoted to an excess of wisdom, looks like. It is hardly free because you are subject to this particular form of learning, the academic life, and no other form of living is good enough for you. So by focusing on the virtue of your character, continuing to tampen down those instincts and accord yourself with the middle way for an Aristotelian, you end up cultivating this ability to hone in and control these instincts and these appetites. Because every decision you make is ingrained on your soul. That's why the term character comes from the Greek kerosene, which means to etch. So apply this to Vader. Anakin lacks this habituation of control because he hasn't made a habit of it. He just pursues strength. He pursues ability. So he pursues strength, but not an ordered strength. He pursues ability, but not virtue inability of that excess, that middle line between excess and deficiency. So every choice becomes reactive. His fear triggers his ability to control. If he's scared of something, there's too much chaos, I need more order, I need more control. His loss triggers violence because there must have been something he could have done. And so he hates himself for letting that happen. And his anger triggers an escalation. Because the more and more you get angry, the more and more you hate. And that's something I really identify with when it comes to Vader. That fiery temper. And the more that I would let it out, the less I would control it, the more it would want to control my life. The more angry I would get, and the faster I would anger. I'm hardly in control when I feel that wrath. So from an Aristotelian standpoint, a man without virtue is not free because he is not stable in himself. He's moved by the circumstances. And whatever is moved by the circumstances cannot govern itself. So Vader becomes powerful, but not self-governing. And that, for Aristotle, would be akin to the tyrannical soul of Plato. So, bringing this all together, Plato kind of shows us the structure of the soul. Without rational order, desire fragments it and you become tyrannical. Augustine shows us the depth. Disordered love binds the will inwardly. Incurvatus in se, focusing on yourself. And Aristotle shows us the mechanisms that without virtue and habit, character collapses into reaction. So what is power without virtue? It's disorder. And what is disorder under that power? It's slavery. And that's why Vader is so important philosophically. So let's return to our initial question. Why do powerful men become slaves? Because power does not resolve the soul, it reveals it. Much like fighting games reveals my weaknesses, my ability to handle a loss, my ability to adapt, so does power. But in this meditation, I hope it's clear. Plato demonstrated that disorder destroys the unity of the soul. Augustine additionally revealed that disordered love enslaves the will. And Aristotle explains that freedom requires cultivating the virtue. But it is Vader who illustrates what happens when all three collapse into one life. Ironically, the tragedy here is not that he gained too much power, but that he never became the type of person who could carry it. Because the most dangerous chains are not external. They are the habits we mistake for strength and the loves we mistake for freedom.
Thank you for watching HD Philosophy. Like, share, and subscribe.